Welcome back to the virtual video store. Nat, how are you?
Good. How are you, Katie?
Good, good. You are looking awesome in your sunglasses at night vibe.
They're my shades.
Oh, shades.
We'll get into that.
Doesn't ring a bell, doesn't ring a bell. I'm going to be all about the puns today, or I don't know, maybe they're puns, maybe they're not puns, but we are rewinding it back to 1996 today to talk all about and maybe break into song about that thing you do.
You. Are we allowed to do that?
Thing you do. We'll risk getting sued for 5 seconds of that thing you do.
You think Tom Hanks would come after us for standing his movie?
It feels somewhat unlikely.
I don't think America's Dad would be upset that we are in love with America's Dad.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I'm really proud of us because right before, so we do a half an hour early sound check because A, it's just fun to hang out, and B, we feel like probably we're going to need it. And today we absolutely needed it, but everyone watching and listening and catching us later should be really proud of us because we had all the audio issues and somehow we managed to be ready like right on time. So we're nailing it. We're just absolutely killing it today. Everything is smooth sailing here on out. Oh my gosh. Well, as usual, so if you are new to this show or you're just catching us, we are on episode 2. Last week, we talked all about Empire Records, which, I mean, let's be real, is probably one of our favorite movies, if not our absolute favorite movie. So we're rolling into this podcast with all of our favorites, even though everyone has been awesome in sending us all your recommendations. Keep doing that. At the end of last week, we said we would come up with an email address, and guess what? We have an email address. So you can now email us your movie recommendations or drop them in the comments if you're watching live or if you're catching us on replay later on YouTube. Our email address is the VHS Club pod at gmail.com. It is in the description and you can find us on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts, but it's more fun to hang out in the live studio audience like Doc and Tristan are right now. What? Hey, live viewers? It's incredible. Sorry, listeners, later, you're missing all of the fun. You don't get to ask all of your questions. But yeah, this week we figured we would take it into that thing you do, which is, again, one of our all-time favorites. But we promise we will take your movie recommendations soon. And the shtick of this show is that we are reviewing movies from the 90s. When we run out of 90s movies, we will be hanging out in the 80s and the early 2000s. Nat does all of the hard work and rewatches the movies and takes all of the notes. I take all of the credit. And hey, I came up with fun facts today. So there you go.
Pretty fun.
Pretty fun. Pretty fun facts. So let's kick it off. Are you ready? Do you have your notes ready, Nat? Are you going to kick us into?
I do. So this movie, filmed in 1996, is starring an all-star cast.
All-star cast.
Tom Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Everett Scott,
mm-hmm.
Steve Zahn,
so good.
Jonathan, and I'm gonna mess up saying his last name because I really just can't remember. Back to the
Jonathan,
90s.
We don't really like your character. Yeah.
His character, we'll get to that later because if I start now, that's the whole podcast.
It'll be over. It'll just be like, we don't like Jonathan. We don't even know your last name from that thing you do.
No, Jonathan, I'm sure, is lovely. It's just his character, Jimmy. I want to I punch in the sack That's
Yeah.
it.
See, he played it too well, and
So well.
I blur all of
Oh.
those lines. So if you play your character really well, then I assume that that's who you are in real life, and I am either like hopelessly in love
No.
with you or epically angry at you, depending on what character you've ended
I'm
up
sure
with.
Jonathan's lovely. Also in this, who we just know is lovely because we are obsessed and in love with him, Ethan
Obsessed.
Embry.
Ethan Embry, who was also in Empire Records. So again, if you're keeping up with us, we have
I
a
feel
theme.
like this is
we're,
the theme.
we're rolling into a theme. Yeah.
And sticking to that theme, Liv Tyler.
Liv
is in
Tyler
this movie.
also, yeah. So we're just carrying over. We're gonna have to find another '90s movie that has both of them in it. It might be
For
hard.
any movie with them in it. I think that should be our obsession, is Liv Tyler and Ethan Embry in movies together.
Absolutely.
We also have some guest appearances in this movie by the beautiful Charlize Theron, who I have to say still looks exactly the same today as she did in this movie in 1996. Beautiful. Rita Wilson, Colin Hanks, and Giovanni Ribisi, who is a great character actor. I love Giovanni Ribisi.
Well, I want to call this out right now at the very beginning and just completely derail your notes and throw you completely off. In that, so Colin Hanks is in this movie. And again, another throwback to last week's episode, because I'm just going to force you all to listen to last week's episode. But last week's episode, there was an actor's name in the credits who we could not find in the movie. And it turns out he just wasn't in the movie, right?
They deleted his scenes. He filmed the movie.
So this time around, Colin Hanks appears in the credits, but we were watching it on VHS because OG, and that's how we rolled. So we could not find Colin Hanks in this movie, and there was no YouTube and ability to easily search and actually find where Colin Hanks was. But now that there is,
couldn't go frame by frame on a VHS
he's
tape.
in this movie, but it's very, very quick. And it bothered me for years. And now that we're revisiting it and I've actually like seen the clip, I can confirm that Colin Hanks, who I adore, is in this movie. But what a weird feeling to like throwing it back to VHS. I rewinded the crap out of that movie and could not find him anywhere. It's like, he must have just been removed from the movie. So
no, it's a quick scene. What was it? He's helping Liv
Faye.
Tyler.
Yeah, he helps Liv Tyler's character, Faye, get
Through
seated
a crowd?
somewhere or through a crowd. Yeah, it's like
it's when they get seated. That's at the end of the movie. Yeah. So good.
I missed it in my rewinding, but it's there. So
So
yeah,
the
you'll have to
Hanks
catch it for him.
family, per majority of the Hanks family is in this movie. There's
not
wife
Chet.
Rita, son Colin, and not Chet. No,
Obvious
I mean, maybe
reasons.
was he a baby at the time? Was he
was
born yet?
He was born. In my fun fact research, he was I think he was 3 or 4 when it came out.
Okay,
so he was
so he
less
was not-
obnoxious than he is now. So just gonna let that ride out there. But yeah.
So in the movie, it takes place in 1964, and it has that great feel that of like these old movies from the 60s where it's like the lettering, like the signage on the
it's
opening
a vibe.
credit, like the art, the opening credit art was very 1960s, and it shows the cars, the mom and pop shops, playing the pop music, which is new at the time, and it's super fun and colorful. Like they really set the scene for this movie.
Absolutely.
We're very quickly introduced to Guy Patterson, who is played by Tom Everett Scott. Yes, also he will be known as Shades in the movie, hence my cute little sunglasses, my vintage 1960s sunglasses for our viewers.
You are absolutely impressive because I honestly walked into what I'm now calling the pod lab, and I was like, oh shoot, did I wear this sweatshirt last week? Are people gonna notice that it's the same? I've been living in this very comfy sweatshirt in the frigid New England temperatures. So yes, I am jonesing all of your styles.
Well, you could thank my grandmother for those sunglasses because those were her original
incredible.
sunglasses back in the 60s.
Yeah, right? Just so cool.
Love it. You know, sometimes you gotta hold on to some things. They might come in handy for a podcast.
Absolutely.
So we're quickly introduced to Guy. He's a jazz musician. He's works with his parents in their appliance store. He's closing the store, counting the money, seeing a theme again.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's lots of money
Puts on a
counting.
jazz record drumming about. And so we get this clear picture of this character. He's kind of listening to this music that's not popular at the time. He's listening to Black artists, which I think is super cool, but makes him an outlier at the time in America, I think.
Dislike. Yeah.
That sounds correct to me.
Yeah, that sounds correct.
It sounds correct, which makes me automatically love him. He's listening to good music. So,
exactly.
He clearly has an overbearing father who doesn't approve of his taste in music and doesn't approve in his creative sort of lifestyle that he wants to lead, but he's living a very safe lifestyle. Then immediately after that, we are introduced to the band. We're interested to Jimmy, who is clearly the leader of the band and the A-type personality. He thinks he's the creative genius, which, let's just cut to the chase. Guy is actually the creative genius. Guy's not in the band yet, but
he's clearly going to be the creative genius.
Yeah, and Jimmy's full of shit. He's one of those people whose ego is bigger than the world.
Yeah.
We are introduced to Lenny, who is fun. He's introduced like fun. He's not taking anything serious. He's like, hey, we're doing a gig at the college. It's a talent show. He's like, that's going to be a hoot.
Yeah, he's the quote guy. Like every amazing quote in this movie is 100% Lenny. And we were chatting before we jumped on, and like it's this very dry, sarcastic sense of humor that you almost have to watch a couple of times to really fully catch every brilliant line he has. Yeah. And his delivery is just perfect.
Rewatching this movie, I was like, oh yeah, Steve Zan's sarcasm. That was a thing. That was such a thing in the 90s. Like, I'm sure people hired him just to do him in movies back then.
His shtick.
So funny.
Yeah. Yep.
And one of the other characters we meet is Giovanni Ribisi's Chad. He's the drummer, and TB Guy, who is, or TB Player, I should say. His official TB character player. Name is TB Player, which is Ethan Embry. He's the bass player. Poor guy never actually got a name in the movie.
No.
So he's TB Player.
He did not.
When Katie and I were younger, again, being obsessed with Ethan Embry, we just called him TB Guy. Like TB we used to like etch that into our copybooks in high school.
Yeah, and I've got to
TB Guy heart.
TB Guy heart. I've got to pause for a second here for a couple of fun facts and an amazing moment from our friend Mary Lou Mandel. But the first is all of the music in this movie, of which it's like incredibly important to the movie itself. Obviously this is a movie about a band. Tom Hanks, who took his directorial debut, that's hard to say, in this movie, couldn't afford to include literally any music from the 60s in this movie because it's so beloved and so expensive that they wrote all of the music for this movie. Like he worked with modern day at the time 90s bands to be able to write all of the music for this movie. And I just like, I don't know.
Very authentic sounding 60s music really puts you in that time period.
Absolutely incredible. And I'm going to read this comment because this is exactly like our love for TB Guy, the bass guy. But Mary Lou wrote to me today through Instagram and she said, when everybody else dreamed of Backstreet Boys, I was dreaming of the Oneders. The closest I've ever come to a fanatical boy band phase. I still listen to this soundtrack. 100% me. Like, and I had a boy band phase, but it was a lot of fictional bands. I don't know what that says about me as a person.
We're obsessed with fictional bands.
Yeah, living in the fictional world. And then the final thing I'll say, and then I'll let you continue. I'm just going to be the interrupting. I'm going to be the interrupting cow this entire podcast. Yes. But the last thing I will say is that so you were right in that Ethan Embry's character never actually gets a name. But years later, and I can't remember the exact date, but years later, Ethan Embry, who always assumed that TB stood for Tobias, named that character Tobias. So we can call the bass player, TB player, Tobias bass player. I guess is his
I'm
official
still
last
gonna
name.
call him TB Guy, let's
Yeah.
be honest, because that's just how I know and love him.
Yeah.
So
It suits the character.
he's always very quirky. His movements are really funny. Like you're introduced to his funny quirkiness. It's super adorable, like right off the bat.
Mhm.
That's Ethan Embry.
Yeah.
Lovely. So right away we see the band is trying to figure out they need a band name for this college talent show that they're entering.
Hmm.
Um, and they're throwing out different band names, like the Hedgeman, was it?
Henchmen, yeah. The Cordettes, I think was what they
Yeah,
they had some
yeah,
like very terrible names.
yes. And then we see Guy is working at his dad's shop, and everybody's kind of hanging out outside of the store, and you're like, we know that the drummer Guy is going to be in this band, but how is he going to get into this band?
Yeah.
Well, boys will be boys, and boys will be stupid. I apologize to any of our male listeners, but
Boys in the 60s could be very stupid, yes.
young, like teens, 20s,
Sure.
not all of the brain cells firing. That's all for all teens, I would think, but
Mhm.
in my personal experience, not the brightest crayon in the box. So the boys are hopping, like frog hopping,
Sock
parking
hopping.
meters.
Yep.
And of course, Chad falls and breaks his arm. So they're like, hey, Guy, can you join our band just one night, just for tonight? We're desperate. And when they're practicing, Jimmy is like, he's the band leader, he's a singer, he plays guitar, and it's
Like, we're gonna
this
do it
slow
this
song, and
way.
he's taking it so seriously. And
Yeah.
you just see Guy is banging around on the drums like, okay, so that's it? And they're like, yeah, that took like Chad like 8 weeks to learn. And he's like, I'll see you later. But they come up, Liv Tyler's character, Faye, she comes up with this idea, and she's Jimmy's girlfriend.
Yeah.
She comes up with this idea. She's like, oh my God, you guys can be the Wonders. She's like, like the Beatles, where they use the EA for beat,
for
like
beat,
Beatles. Yeah. And you guys can be the Wonders, like the O-N-E
Wonders.
And they're like, that's it. That's the band name. Brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
So they get to the talent show, and there was this one character actor, and I forgot to look up his name. I know he was in like a Jelly Belly jelly bean commercial in the 90s.
Take me
and
back.
We used to call him the jelly bean guy.
Where are my jelly beans? This is what I'm missing in my life.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And he was a heckler. He was a heckler at the talent show.
I don't remember like him specifically, but yeah, I'm jonesing some jelly beans right now.
Well, he was also in I think the Ocean Spray commercials in the 90s.
Oh, those I remember
Cranberry
too.
guy.
Alrighty, he's a cranberry jelly bean guy, also heckler.
So when the band gets introduced at the talent show, the host is like, he's supposed to introduce the Wonders, and he's like, and the Oneders.
I'm laughing because for those of you who are not hanging out in our live studio audience, Doc for the last minute has just been like, Oneders!
I'm getting there, Doc. I got you. The Oneders.
There is a cult following for this movie, my friends. The Oneders. I love it.
Oh man, so good. Which becomes like a bit of a gag, like a bit of a running joke in the movie.
Yeah.
Everybody of course they're gonna read it phonetically, and it's Oneders,
Yeah.
I mean, they're not the Beatles. So.
I know. And it's so funny because they're not the Beatles, but like this entire movie has the whole Beatles.
That
I don't
60s,
know. I need another word other than vibe.
Yeah. The whole like Beatlemania.
Yeah. Exactly.
We didn't call them fangirls or super fans or stans back in the day. It was Beatlemania.
It was Beatlemania.
That was a way to describe.
It is Oneder mania.
Yes.
Oneder. That was a hard one to say as well.
Wonders.
The Wonders. Wonderland. So, there's a lot of fun.
Yep. They get up on the talent show, and for I don't know, no reason at all. Guy's just like, he counts them off, and he just ups the tempo and makes this, instead of a ballad, to a pop song.
Well,
He just
he's shades, you know, so he's just like, no, I'm gonna play my way.
is like,
I'm gonna do it the way
I
I want to do it.
sometimes just hear music in my head and I know how it's supposed to be, and this is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
Great song, I'm just speeding it up. And give it to the band. They're good. They catch on super quick. There's like barely a blip, and it's an instant hit. Instant hit.
that's gotta be
Absolute
such a
deadline.
crap feeling for Jimmy, who like just desperately wanted his songs to work the way they were, and some punk upstart jazz drummer makes him look like crap. Like that's gotta just be like
Yeah, but
Jimmy
Jimmy's
face.
also extremely vain. So as soon as he sees that the crowd is going crazy, everybody's up dancing. They have those
True.
like the MC, and they have the talent scale girl who literally is just like a woman pointing at a chart. Like, are you
That
bad or
is
are you super
That is
good?
one of my favorites. I feel like we need to bring that back. We could just have that like in the background of like videos that we do on YouTube or like live videos. It's just like, are we okay today? Are we okay? Are we good? Are we good? Are we good? Oh,
So, yes, Jimmy's furious, but he sees the success of the song, and immediately they are hit up by a restaurant owner, and he's like, I have this restaurant bar down by the airport. So, big, shiny gig. He's like, I'll pay you guys
hey,
to
paid gig.
come.
Yeah.
Yeah, paid gig. So they instantly get a gig. Fantastic. The gig goes really well, and the heckler is back, and he is a fan now. But mind you, he does have to heckle them like, stop playing this crap. We want to hear that song.
We don't like any of Jimmy's songs. Play that drummer song in the back.
So with the success of they're starting to get some like popularity. People around town know them. Like they're getting local fame. And a guy's uncle works in a church and happens to have some recording equipment. So they decide to cut an album and sell it for $1 because why not make $1?
Because the
They can.
60s. And $1
Yeah.
would have been a lot of money. No, just kidding.
Which
Would have been an
super
okay amount of money.
amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like $1 was probably a lot of money in 1964.
Yeah. I mean, if you sold a bunch of them, yeah.
Yeah. Super cute cameo. His uncle Bob, I think it is
Yeah.
Chris Isaacs.
Yeah. You gotta have like an Uncle Bob.
Which I didn't know if I knew that then, but rewatching it this week, I was like, oh, Wicked Games.
That is kind of the fun of rewatching some of these movies, is that at the time that you watched it, or at the time that you watched it and rewatched it, you didn't necessarily know the entire catalog of some of these actors work. So yeah, it's neat to be able to be like,
He
oh,
wasn't even an actor yet.
yeah,
He was a
exactly.
singer.
He was Uncle
country
Bob.
singer.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, another great cameo in this small part, Guy's girlfriend is played by the ever beautiful Charlize Theron.
Oh, yeah. And this was fun fact alert. We need like a fun voiceover sound. Fun fact. Yeah, the Charlize Theron script for this movie. This was I think her first serious role that she had, actually is signed by Tom Hanks, who declares that he will forever be the one that made her famous, that like brought her into this world. So yeah, into the acting world, not her dad. To be clear.
So with the success of this band, now has residence at this local bar. Again, Steve Zahn has these great lines, like the restaurant owner is like, hey, you Oneders are great. He's like, no, that's Oneders.
Again,
he corrects him, but
gold.
incorrectly.
Yeah.
Amazing. One of my favorite quips. This guy comes up to them. He sees them buys their record, listens to them play, and basically asks around town, finds out where Guy works at this appliance store, and goes to meet him. And pulls up in this Winnebago, like an RV that looks a little. It's a little no, not so fancy. Looks a little dirt. A little dirt.
A little dirt. Got it.
He's like, hey, can I talk to you about your song? I represent bands. I'm a manager. I would love if you guys hired me. I have this contract for you. And he's like, well, I'm going to have to get my bandmates and like ask them. And they have this meeting in this guy's RV outside of Patterson's Electronics.
As you do. Sure. Yeah.
As you do. And it's so sketch. And you could see them being like, I don't know if this is a good idea. But, you know, being young kids,
I mean,
everybody
less
wants to be
kidnappings
successful.
and serial killers in the 1960s. That wasn't even a term yet. So, I mean, really, you know.
So they sign and they're like, let's do it. So they end up, and the band manager says, look, if I can't get your song on the radio in the next like X number of time, then, you know, rip up the contract, we're done. And this is one of, if not my favorite scene in the whole movie. Everybody has these like their earbuds in, they're listening to their little like AM radios, like trying to find, hear if their song's going to come up. And it does. But just as Tom Everett Scott, a guy takes his out because he's working and his dad yells at him. But Liv Tyler's the first to hear it. And she just...
She's so cute.
Emotes pure joy.
Yeah.
She freaks out. And I literally, like, every time I watch that scene, I'm like almost bursting into tears because I'm so happy for them. And that's all her. She forces that emotion into me. She's running. She's running to the store to go see Guy. TB Guy is there. She grabs him. She's like, you're on the radio. You're on the radio. They run into the store. Obviously, there's lots of radios and record players and stereos and stuff. So they turn them on all over the store. They're jumping up and down and freaking out that their song is on the radio. You could see Guy's mom, who's usually like pretty, stands behind her husband, is like actually super excited about it.
Do you think we have that same vibe today? Like, I wonder if like, because I mean,
it must.
I mean, when radio was like, I mean, not in its heyday, I guess, when we were growing up, but certainly like still a powerful force. There was something super exciting about like catching your favorite song on the radio, or like running to, you know, catch their favorite song because you were trying to make a mixtape and you had to like run and like record it off the radio and then be able to stop it and then get the next one so you'd be able to put together the perfect mixtape.
Make sure there's no commercials.
Yeah, exactly. You just don't like have that
ball your
anymore.
eyes out when power goes out and you couldn't get Janet Jackson on it, cut half song. You're like, no, my mixtape is ruined.
Right? Like that would have been just, I know that this is a pretend band. Everyone, I know that this is a pretend band, but this would have been such a beautiful moment for this band, you guys. This would have just been like the most epic possible thing. Like, yeah. The RV guy pulled through.
Doc has mentioned because of like $1 in the 60s is equivalent to purchasing power to about $10.03 today.
I know. See,
so $10
it's really
for one single.
Mm-hmm. It's really important to have
vinyl record.
Exactly, to have people in the live studio audience, because then they can do all the fact checking for you. And then Doc also says that the inflation rate over 63 years, 1960, was 1.72%. Oh my gosh, I love it. And Doc had a song on a radio in 1994. So there you go. It was an out-of-body experience, he says. Yeah.
Yes. Wouldn't it be? And I find the cast just emulated that. They made that happen and they made you feel how important that was and how surreal it was for them.
Yeah.
Of course, Jimmy wasn't there celebrating until like the very end because
Jimmy.
Whatever. I mean, clearly Jimmy does not go down well in this movie because I am just openly hating him from the beginning.
I mean, we don't know what amount of potatoes that this movie will get at the end, but we know that Jimmy gets like half a potato, maybe like a quarter of a potato. He has like no potatoes.
Jimmy gets a rotten potato eye. Okay, he doesn't even get a potato.
He certainly doesn't get a Christian tater. He gets like an old potato that we found somewhere. Maybe part of that. That's what's happening with Jimmy.
So then this movie takes them on the road. And they get to tour, which also another TB Guy moment that I love when they're signing their possibly CD contract in the back of this dirtmobile.
To be clear, CD like gross, not CD like a CD.
I don't think most listeners would be like, oh, CD as in compact disc. They
That's
don't
true.
exist anymore. I mean, I have a bunch,
Oh yeah,
but
I'm refusing to give that technology up.
yes. I mean, speaking of the CD, you did have the soundtrack on CD that we
I
listened
still
to
do.
obsessively.
I should have brought it in because I not only do I still have that, but I have it in my Blockbuster CD holder in my car because when you worked at Blockbuster, as long as I
You
did,
got free merch.
you got free merch every time that you won Employee of the Month. And I'm a keener, so I have like every possible Blockbuster merch imaginable. I have like a duffel bag and a CD case and cups and T-shirts and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I have
Yeah.
I have it. I have no place to play it. I used to play them in my computer, but they don't have that anymore. The new
I know, I'm
computer.
still a little upset that I have to get an external disk drive because I still like to watch DVDs.
It's true. It's true. I know. I hang on to my DVD player. I refuse to give that up.
Actually, I still have my VHS player, which is fully how I watch this movie.
Oh, I love
Because
it.
I only have it on VHS.
Mine does not work anymore. So I'm gonna have to buy a new VHS player, which I feel like is gonna be difficult. So
The trick is to get a VHS tape rewinder separate from your machine. It helps your machine last longer.
Oh,
Mine
pro
is in the
tips.
shape of a red
A
Corvette.
red car. Yeah. Oh, I remember it vividly.
Remember? So cute moment with TB Guy in the dirty RV is the manager's like, yeah, we could tour places. He's listing off a couple places, and then he says Pittsburgh, and TB Guy's like, Pittsburgh, and he's so excited about Pittsburgh.
That's my vibe.
I've
I
never
love
been to
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, but I'm like, is that really like
It
an
is.
exciting travel
It-
destination?
It is not an exciting travel destination, and everyone other than TB Guy and I would say that it is like eye roll, not the best place to visit. But it is so fun to visit, everyone. There's so many fun things there. I had a blast. I did like a mini
No.
a mini weekend trip with one of my friends who's a travel agent, like for like school groups to different American cities, and it was really fun. So we got to do all like all the school group stuff. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
Pittsburgh is a remarkably fun city.
Okay, well, I'll be excited as
I'm
TB
with-
Guy if ever
yes,
I go.
my best friend, my other best friend, Ethan Embry, and I are very big fans of Pittsburgh because I obviously, you know, he and TB Guy have the same feelings and thoughts and loves.
Clearly.
So yeah,
Clearly.
clearly.
So now they hit the road. They bomb their first show.
Mm-hmm.
Everything goes wrong when they're in front of a big audience in Pittsburgh. The mics aren't on. The
We've been
MC
there.
is furious with them like smoking cigarettes on the side stage, like piss, like just play something. And Guy gets stage fright. He gets stage fright, and he's just like he's offbeat. He and you need the drummer to
You
carry.
need-
You know, anyway, it went very badly, but they managed to, the manager is like, you know what, I have somebody for you to meet, Mr. White, which is played by Tom Hanks.
Tom
He
Hanks!
worked for a record label called Playtone, tone as in Tone. And he's like, I want to sign you guys. And sorry, Doc distracted me. He's like,
The live
Amazon
studio
has Sony
audience is the
VHS
best for
DVD player
distractions.
combos.
Yeah, exactly. The best for distractions. Doc is selling me on, on all kinds of fun things. Love it.
And they end up after some debate, and Jimmy is like, if we sign with you, are we going to immediately record another album? Because we need to immediately record another album. And everybody's like, Jimmy, calm down. Like, let's maybe get some tour dates, get some fans. If that goes well, maybe we'll record another album. He's like, I need to record another album. Anyways, they end up signing, and then they get to go on state fair tours. So this is big, and they're meeting big artists that they grew up listening to and hearing. They're just absolutely fanning when they meet all these like celebrities. Jimmy immediately starts to distance himself from his girlfriend Faye, who is on tour with them as their costume mistress.
Yeah, as you do.
I mean, at least she got to go. And
Which
he
feels
starts
like
to-
very unbelievable to me. Like, Liv Tyler is incredibly attractive and like the nicest possible person in this movie. And he's just like, I don't need to talk to you. I feel like in real life, he'd be like, I don't need
Please
to
talk
not,
to me.
yeah, talk to anyone but you. Please don't talk to me, other women. Yeah.
No, but he starts to distance himself. He starts to try and intrude and impose on some of the bigger famous celebrities. And he worms his way in with Diane, who's it's implied by Mr. White, the label manager, that she's kind of on her way out. And then we get this beautiful montage, and I love movie montages. I'm a sucker for it, of their song, the Wonders. Now they're officially the Wonders, by the way,
Yes.
because
Now
Tom
it's
Hanks is
spelled
like, "You're not
properly.
Oneders. That's ridiculous. You're Wonders. Just plain spelt normal
Just
Wonders."
spell it right. Yeah, exactly.
So their song starts climbing the charts, and you see it starts with them freaking out that they hit, I think, 91. So they're on the top 100, and they're just so excited. And it shows them touring and them practicing and getting different costumes. And then you see them in these gold suits, and they have backup dancers. Like now they have a fan base. Money is going into them. They're being invested. Oh, and when they first do their first performance on this tour, Tom Hanks does this brilliant thing where he gives Guy, the drummer, some shades. It's, yes, to make him look cool, but I feel that it's also to try and help him put a barrier between him and the audience so he doesn't get stage fright.
I like it.
And this is a theme I noticed, that Tom Hanks is kind of like their tour dad. He's taking care of them.
Tom Hanks is everyone's dad. This is just how Tom Hanks
America's
rolls.
dad.
America's dad.
And he's taking care of these kids on tour. He's making sure they're okay. He's making sure Faye is not left behind. And then when their song hits, I think it's the top 20 on the charts, they realize that it's the fastest rising song on the Playtone charts ever. So they get off of this State Fair tour and go and be resident in California, the headquarters of the record label, and they're going to get to be in movies. They're going to get to do a variety show, kind of like an Ed Sullivan type show.
Yeah.
And they have all these opportunities. They're going to be put up at a 5-star hotel, first class. And again, Jimmy's like, okay, but does this mean we get to sign, like, to record a record? Like, and anyways, off they go. There's this really sweet scene on the plane, or even just before they get on the plane. They're leaving the last venue of the State Fair. And there's all these fans, and you really get this Beatlemania sense, and they're screaming, "Shades! Shades!" So Guy is now known as Shades. And Tom Hanks is like, "Kid, they're screaming for you. Put your shades on and let's go." And they have to bolt and get into a cop car because their limo can't even get through to get to them.
Yeah, it's very mania. You really feel like you're
climbing on the cop car,
yeah.
screaming, crying. Like,
yeah, it goes from fun to like almost scary, where you're
very scary.
You're so kind of like, you can feel the energy and the excitement, but also it's like right on that danger line.
Yeah. And then Jimmy, what does he do? As they're all running, and they gotta be at least anxious about this crowd and the intensity of it. So they're running, and poor Faye gets left behind. Jimmy doesn't notice, but Shades does. He goes back for her.
Jimmy doesn't deserve Faye, you guys. He just doesn't.
No. But Shades Guy goes and saves her. He goes back, and he's like, "No, she's with us." And he grabs her. They propel her into the car. They're all safe. They're on the flight. She also on the flight ends up being really sick. She has a fever. And again, Guy takes care of her. He tucks her in, tells her to lie down. And then they're having a band meeting on a different part of the plane. And he's like, "Hey, Jimmy, like, your girl's, like, Faye's really sick." And he's like, "Okay, but are we going to record a song?" Without missing a beat, no eye contact. Doesn't even care that his poor girlfriend has this horrible flu. Anyways, so now we're in LA. They get to be in a movie. And it's one of those like wild like 60s movies, like those beach movies, like beach party
Mm.
movies, I think they're called.
And it has the name Shrimp in it, so it's very like, again,
Yeah.
fun fact moment, guys. Fun fact. Tom Hanks actually wrote this entire script while he was doing like a promo tour for Forrest Gump. So this here is a nod back to Forrest Gump vibes to name
it is.
to name this fake movie after Bubba Gump Shrimp. Bubba Shrimp Co. Bubba. We'll have to rewatch that one. It's not at the top of mind. I'm sure Doc will correct me in the chat.
Doc, what was it called?
What was it called? Bubba Shrimp. Bubba. I want to say Gump, but that's not the right thing. It's Bubba Shrimp
Isn't
Company.
there a chain of restaurants in the
Yes,
US?
yeah, there are. Yeah, I've never been.
No,
Yeah.
we don't have them in Canada. So I mean, we don't even have Olive Garden in Quebec, so I like it's not like a big thing that we don't have it here. So they're filming it, and you can see Jimmy is like, "This is below us." He is so pissed off that they're in these adorable little sailor suits, which of course TB guy, instead of his little white like 60s like think like Vietnam like Navy 60s like white sailor hat, the ones that stand up, like they have like that sort of like almost cardboard
Oh yeah.
circle sits on top of your head.
Yep.
Well, he flipped the thing down and it wears it like a bucket hat, because I was like, of course TV guy comes up with a bucket hat before there's bucket hats. I love him. Oh, Doc came through. It's
Bubba
Captain
Gums is
Beach and the Shrimp Shack Shooters is the name of the real restaurant in South Carolina. And Bubba Gump is right. Thank you, Doc.
There you go.
Oh,
And
we
if
have
you're
it
in
Hawaii.
if you're in Hawaii and in California, you can go to one. All right, next time I'm in either state.
I'll just have to go to Hawaii. Clearly, that's my next trip.
All right, listeners, we'll be right back after this brief message. Yeah.
So Jimmy basically pitches one of his many hissy fits. And
Are we done with this guy yet? This guy needs to get out of the band.
You know, in my notes, I'm like, narcissist. Anyways, we continue. Everybody else thinks it's fun. We completely missed out. We have foreshadowing throughout this whole movie that this is going to be a one-hit wonder. The clue in Oneders. Also, TB guy announces that he's joined the military just before they leave to go on tour.
Sure,
he's
yeah.
like, yeah, I'm being deployed in August.
It'd be so irritating. You're like, hey, we finally just made it as a band. And then this guy's like, all right, see you later.
So there's a shelf life. And now that Jimmy and his ego is having all these little hissy fits and meltdowns, like you really get the sense that elation we felt earlier in the movie is starting
It's a roller coaster. We're going down now. Yeah.
So sad. And you could tell that guy, he knows. He's the smart one. He knows it's coming. He senses it. But he's also hopeful. He's hoping it will last.
Yeah.
They have this, they do they do a photo shoot with the head of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really like a mind-blowing experience for them. They're just standing there, a photographer takes pictures of them. Everybody's talking around them like they don't exist and they're not at all important, because they're not. They only have one hit out so far.
Yep.
They meet the owner and he takes the pictures and then he walks off. And Jimmy, who thinks he's God's gift, goes up to this guy and he's like, I'd like to talk to you about my artistic and
integrity
plans for future albums. And he basically flips out. The guy's like, who is this little shit? Get him away from me. Which I was like, yes. Does that knock Jimmy down a peg? Absolutely not. He just throws more hissy fits.
Mm-hmm.
So over that. Mm-hmm. Then they finally get their sort of Ed Sullivan, their variety show moment, which is like the biggest deal. This is like the whole country, at the very least, and wherever it's syndicated to, is going to see this band. They're going to meet this band, not just hear their song on the radio.
Yeah, this is the YouTube of the past.
Thank you, Ed Sullivan. That's not why YouTube was invented. That has to do with Janet Jackson, but that's another story that we probably won't get into on this podcast.
Oh.
So they get their Ed Sullivan moment, and one of my favorite things is you see Guy's family watching back home and being so excited.
Oh.
And Chad is actually there, kind of seems like he might be dating Guy's sister now, and still with his cast in his arm.
Exactly. He just kind of like moves in, is like friends. Yeah,
It's super cute family moment, and you can see
Chad's
even
alright.
his like his crusty dad is like also really kind of excited.
Oh yeah. 60s dad vibes. He's just like, I'm proud of you, but I'm not gonna tell you to your face.
Yeah, like Red Foreman from that 70s show,
Yep.
slash, for younger listeners, that 90s show.
Yeah, the 90s show.
And when the guys finally get on and they're performing, they lose it, and it's in the best way possible. It's so cute. Even the dad turns it up, which he keeps telling Guy to turn the volume down, and Dad cranks the volume. Mom's jumping up and down. They're singing. Dad puts on some sunglasses and drumming on everything. Like,
we're full circle.
So precious.
Yeah.
Again, this movie just makes me happy.
It is.
Like, I
It's a
think
happy
the biggest
movie.
theme about this movie for me, my biggest takeaway is I'm like, it just makes me happy. Makes me feel joy.
It's just, I know it's supposed to be sort of this, like, again, with our 90s theme of coming of age movies and kind of the rise and fall of this, like, trope of, of what it's like to be famous or what it's like to be
a one-hit
wonder. But you're right. Like, it just has such, like, other than Jimmy, who just we're clearly not fans of, but there, you need a bad guy in every movie. But there
definitely in my notes, I have some choice words for Jimmy that I don't think we're allowed to say. Even
our
on
show
YouTube.
Notes for all of these episodes should just be like your angry notes where you're like, I hate that guy. I hate that guy. I think it is. You're right. It's a feel good, happy movie.
Yeah, and I mean, it does have that coming in age quality too, where you could see that Guy at the beginning of the movie, he's living his safe life. Oh yes, with his safe girlfriend who broke up with him because she's not interested in the music, and she met a really cute dentist.
Yeah.
So she breaks up with him before he goes on tour, and he kind of has this like his safety bubble burst.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this exciting new future that he's going into. So there is that whole very coming of age thing happening. And now with the band, he's realizing, and when they do the Ed Sullivan thing, they can't find TB Guy.
No.
He's gone. He's not there. He doesn't show up. So they have a replacement.
He doesn't have a name. So he doesn't really owe them anything.
They do show us where he went. He went to Disney World with some like army guys that he
one
just
of
bumped
my
into.
all-time favorite moments in this movie. They're just like, he's nowhere to be found, and he's just he's having fun. TB Guy is always living his best life, whether he's Mark in Empire Records or TB Guy in this movie. He's just he's living his best life.
Also, props to TB Guy. He is obsessed with the Chanterelles in this movie, which is like this gorgeous sort of like kind of Diana Ross.
Oh yeah. Totally.
Like Supremes kind of band that they were touring with, and he's
glam
just
band.
absolutely in love with them.
Yep.
I'm like, you go TB Guy. Like, good choice in music. So, like, again, more cracks. Jimmy's messing up. Jimmy's being a dick. The TB Guy disappeared because he was at Disney World or Disneyland, like on Splash Mountain or whatever the Disneyland version of Splash Mountain is.
I couldn't tell you.
I don't know. I've never even been to Disney World. The fact that I know that there's something called Splash Mountain is just from American movies. So
sure, yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, American movies. You've helped Canadians since the 90s and earlier. Yep.
So they have a replacement, and then after this, they end up being like, you know what? This was so great. The audience loved it. You're doing well. We're going to record a new album. And it flashes to the studio. Not just to the studio. I missed the most, like one of the more key elements. When they're, so
over.
this
Start
is
the
what
podcast
Colin
over.
I'm sorry, podcasters. So when Colin Hanks escorts Faye down to her seat, this is where it happens.
Which we missed in our
rewinding. He's an usher for this Ed Sullivan show, and so she's watching it, and when they introduce all the guys, they call like Lenny, they call him Leo, the guitarist, and then there's Wolfman, the bassist, and also this bassist. Is it a thing against bassists? They don't get names?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they show Shades, and it's like they really pan into him, and it's like this moment because Tom Hanks knows that this is
These kids where the money's
the
at.
talent. Like
Yeah.
this is the one
Yeah.
that they want to invest in.
Mm-hmm.
And then they show Jimmy, and it says, "Watch out, girls, he's engaged." And Jimmy sees it on the screen, like on the playback, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And Faye sees it, and she's like, oh, so shocked. When they get back to the changing room after the performance, he rips into her.
Yeah.
Like, makes her feel as small as possible. And she is an icon because she takes a moment, she's shocked. Everybody comes in. Mr. White is the Tom Hanks. He's like, "Okay, this is the future plans. We're going to start recording." And she's like, "Can I have a moment? I want to say something." And she gives him this like soliloquy of a breakup. And basically, my favorite line from it is, "Shame on me for kissing you with my eyes so tight. It's closed so tight."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yes. And she's like, "You are never allowed to speak to me again. I don't ever want to see you again." And then she walks off.
Yep.
Then now they're in the studio. And Jimmy quits. He doesn't want to play by the label's rules. He doesn't want to record the song in other languages.
He doesn't need them.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He doesn't want to play, snappy, upbeat songs. He wants to do all of his love ballads, which are shit, but
Yep.
also his ballad that from earlier in the movie. So every scene where the band played, we got a different song, except for That Thing You Do, we heard twice in the movie.
Yeah. Yep.
And you do hear some of the ballads that they're okay, but really like, they're not snappy.
Who likes an unsnappy song in a fun movie? Come on.
Yeah. So he quits, and that's it. The whole band is dissolved.
Yeah.
Early, like slightly before this, to backtrack, the night that TB guy goes missing with these army guys that he bumps into, not missing, that sounds ominous. He went to Disneyland.
When they were having fun in Disneyland? Okay.
Yeah. Guy, he goes to a jazz band, a jazz club, which he gets the recommendation from one of my favorite characters actually in the movie, Lamar, who is the like concierge at the hotel that they're staying at. He's like, "I'm Lamar and this is my hotel. Let me take care of you." He's the best. Yep. He takes care of Faye when she checks in all by herself and she's sick. He makes sure she has soup sent up to her room.
Aww.
He tells Lenny the best place to go in Vegas and gets him a car, like rents him a car to go out there with his ex-Playboy buddy he meets. Clearly, that's where Lenny disappears to. He gets married in Vegas, doesn't come back. And when Guy, who we established in the first scene is a huge jazz fan, his favorite jazz musician is Del Paxton. Fictional characters.
Yeah, don't you know?
And
Del
he
Paxton?
goes to this club, and Lamar tests him. He's like, "You want to go to a jazz club?" He's like, "Okay, white boy." He's like, "Who recorded on this track?" And Guy answers the question. He's like, "Oh, okay, you're going to a jazz club." So he sends him to this club, and Guy is just in awe. There's this trio just having a jam session playing. It's amazing. He drinks. Rita Wilson is the hostess in the club who's serving him drinks. She looks gorgeous. She has these like long black gloves and that sort of 60s, like how the waitresses all used to dress up fancy in the clubs. I was like, oh, love it. And she's flirting shamelessly with him too the whole time. And he's just getting drunk. And then she's like, she happens to mention while the band is on a break, they're like, "Oh," she's like, "I don't know if they'll get back up to perform because they're talking to Del Paxton." And he's like,
"Where?"
Absolute fangirl moment. Like, now it's his Beatlemania.
Yep.
And she's like, oh God, I've lost you. She's like, do you want me to introduce you? And he's like, oh my God. Meets him, and he puts up with the kid. Dell is just so nice, and they chat business, and he gives him the best advice ever. He's like, bands come and go so easy, so fast. He's like, oh, I've only been with him for 2 months. He's like, yeah, I've been with bands where 2 months was too many.
Yep.
He's like, you play your music, you hold on to your talent, you with your loves. And he's like, and save your money. He's like, because the bands don't last.
Yep.
He's like, the smallest things can set you guys off, make you guys hate each other, annoy you. So now we know, like, the band is really done.
Yeah. They are the one-hit wonders.
Really.
Yep.
And super cute. Rita Wilson, Marguerite, has this line where she's like, because now he's drunk super late and he's just all about Del Paxton, stars in his eyes. And she's like, well, now you're useless to me. And like, walks off.
She is incredible. And what makes this movie even more fun. So for the minus one of you out there that don't know, she is married to Tom Hanks.
Yes.
But there was hilarious backstory, fun facts all around the fact that there was the character, the man who plays Shades. Many people thought he looked too much like Tom Hanks, and so he almost didn't get the role. And she actually talked Tom Hanks into hiring him anyway because she thought he was cute.
Obviously.
Which just makes me happy. And then later, while they were filming the movie, Tom Hanks was just sitting, eating somewhere, kind of like, off screen while other stuff was happening. And she was dressed in her waitress outfit, either before or after scene, and came over and brought him a glass of water. And he didn't recognize that it was her and thought the waitress was cute. So they're just like in love with each other, like inadvertently throughout this movie, which just makes me so incredibly happy.
And I love that she just gets her flirt on in this movie with like a young carbon copy of her husband.
Exactly. Like, she's like, I'm just flirting with my husband in the past. It's wonderful.
Yeah. So then after the recording session, Tom Hanks tells Guy that he can hang out in the studio for a bit if he wants, and but he has to be out of the hotel by tomorrow, and for obvious reasons the band is dissolved.
The band is done.
Yeah. And so he's kind of mopey. He picks up his sticks, he goes to the drums, he just hammers something out, and the guy in the recording side of the studio is like, hey, what is that? Do you want me to lay it down? Like, he's like, oh, it's basically nothing. He's like, I'm Spartacus. That's what I'm calling it. And they laugh. And then Del walks out because Del Paxton was there. He heard it. He's like, you want to jam with me?
Aww.
And he's like, yeah.
Yay!
And then Del is like, hey, record this, by the way.
Aww.
So he got to keep that. And I was like, oh, I mean, like, his band completely exploded, but he got to keep a recording of him and his all-star favorite.
Well, in the end, the movie is less about the band as much as it is about fame and following your dreams and realizing your potential and finding yourself. So in the end, it is a coming of age story.
And realizing who are the important people in your life. Mm-hmm. So more of my spoons, I'm going to call them my spoons when I go, when I watch a movie, which I actually do. When it's like a really spoon-worthy movie.
Love story.
I do. Yeah. He gets back to the hotel and he's carrying his recordings, and Lamar is like, Faye's leaving. And he's like, what? Where is she? And Lamar physically pushes Guy into Faye's direction. I'm like,
sometimes you need
Lamar.
A wizened old man to be like, you need to make this work now, right now, go.
Even Tom Hanks's character, Mr. White, was pushing them together this whole movie. And as she's packing up her luggage, she sees a picture of Guy, her, and Jimmy. And Jimmy's like not even looking. He's sitting further apart. The two of them are close together.
Yeah.
You could tell she's like, oh, like, he's my best friend vibes. Like, I love him. And when you see, like, they're talking in the cafe as she's ready to leave, and she gives him a hug, and you could see that moment where he knows he's in love with her and his heart is like pounding out of his chest.
Aww.
Good at emoting, guys. Thank you. I appreciate the efforts you put in your job. And then they walk off, like she walks off, and then he's like, he doesn't know what to do, and he's just kind of staring at her. And then he goes up to her, he's like, when was the last time you were properly kissed? And she says 1961. And she'd been dating Jimmy for 2 years, so it was like before that.
Before that.
And then he kisses her, and that's basically the end of the movie. Yay! We do get these cute little like photos at the end of like, where are they now? And it ends up that Guy and Faye get married later that year. They raise their kids in Venice Beach, California, and obviously he does his music as Del kind of was like, stay in California, you could play your drums like in these jazz clubs, and it seems that he does. And then they retire, and he opens a music school, which is so cute.
Yeah.
TB Guy did a couple of tours at Vietnam. He got a Purple Heart, and he's a contractor in Florida, like a construction worker in Florida, which, okay, you do you, TB Guy. Love you. Lenny, he is... his marriage in Vegas did not pan out.
Oh, come on,
but
Lenny.
he's now a manager at a Vegas hotel.
Perfect.
Still single, ladies. And the one thing about this movie that genuinely upsets me is that Jimmy does really well for himself. He gets three gold records, becomes a famous producer, and it makes me want to punch him in the face.
This is where like it's like when the VHS goes crazy, and it's like, God, we just don't hear that part.
Exactly. And you don't need that part of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. No, that didn't happen.
My biggest note about Jimmy is he's a sociopath, or high-functioning sociopath with narcissistic personality disorder.
Yep.
Jimmy.
Exactly.
But thank God for everybody else in the movie. Which, again, that just means the actor did a really good job. If I hate him this much, this many years later, decades later.
Yeah.
A few decades later.
That's...
You did good.
All right, I'm looking through. I think we covered almost all of our facts. Let's just double check. All right, so
any more fun facts?
Yep. Well, we didn't cover this one. The 4 actors that play the Oneders actually learned how to play instruments. They played instruments together, but they still unfortunately dubbed over them with actual musicians. But that's okay. They still know how to play. Then that's half of it.
They did play, and I think they did sing. I think Jimmy actually did sing it, though.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this one's my favorite. Okay, we'll end on this fun fact because I think I covered all the rest of them. But okay, so we mentioned that this was the first time that Tom Hanks directed a movie, which is epic. And the only reason that Tom Hanks ended up directing a movie, or this movie specifically, is because he went trick-or-treating with Sean Penn and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they talked him into it because they thought that he would learn how to be a better actor by directing, which is 100% true, but I just want to be there trick-or-treating with Sean Penn.
I love that Arnie was giving out advice on being... Like, Arnie gave out advice on being a better actor. I'm like, Arnie is very good at what he does, but he does that one thing.
Well, probably more Sean Penn than Arnold, but I just love that the 3 of them were trick-or-treating together. Like, can you imagine being in that neighborhood, like with those 3 wandering around together? Amazing. And be like being in that like kid group of kids where you're just like, it just made me incredibly happy that this movie that makes me incredibly happy came out of that absolutely brilliant moment. The people in our amazing live studio audience are agreeing that all of these actors are incredible, with exception of Jimmy, and that trick-or-treating with Sean Penn would be the best, really. So Sean Penn, if you're watching, we're there. We will go trick-or-treating with you.
Shout out to Doc for the info. Apparently Jonathan Scheich, sorry again for pronunciation.
Jonathan, we don't like your last name.
No,
or your
the poor
face.
guy, he got typecast because of this. And it's true, he basically plays a sociopath in everything. He's been a serial killer more than once.
I believe it. See? Now I'm starting to believe he might actually be. He might.
He's not. I'm sure he's lovely. He's lovely. Anyways, again, I mean, he's a good actor, and yeah, maybe he should have skipped this, but I'm glad he didn't because he was so good in it.
Because you needed someone to hate. I mean, you just needed someone to hate. Someone to break Faye's heart so that she could end up with the right person at the end.
Yeah. Tom Everett Scott.
Yeah, yeah. Junior Tom Hanks, yes. Also baby Tom. Baby
Yes.
Tom Hanks.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
you know what? I'm putting it out there in the universe. I think Liv Tyler and Ethan Embry need to do a rom-com, like right now.
Oh, that would be really good. Obviously, you two
Yeah.
are watching, so you should really think about that. It could be set in the 90s, but be filmed now. I'm believing in it. Tom Hanks could write it when he's on his next press tour. It's going to be great.
It could be like You Got Mail 2.
It could be. It could be like You Got Mail, but like better. You Get Text. We could really bring it up to the... Well, no, then it wouldn't be set in the 90s. I've ruined the plot.
You Got
I'm not allowed to
Paged?
write it. You got paged? That sounds like negative, like something has happened to you. You've been paged. Oh my gosh.
You got beat. Could have an entendre there.
All right. Oh, we didn't go through our memes. Well, people who are listening, you don't get to see these memes, which is why you should be hanging out with us on YouTube. But
Yes.
they are some good ones. And again, Steve Zahn killing it with all of the absolutely incredible moments in this movie are all Steve Zahn related. Just can't stop singing this gosh darn song. It's been caught in my head for forever. I'm really bummed that we can't just play it over and over again in the background as we talk. So just imagine that it's there. And if you haven't listened to the soundtrack, please just go and listen to the soundtrack. You'll want to watch the movie.
We're too poor. We can't afford music.
Yeah, which
Not
is
for our
also
YouTube
a
channel,
fun fact
you
from
know.
this episode. Like Tom Hanks, we cannot afford music, so we have done it. You know, it's just us and Tom Hanks. Alone in our principles. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, we should get to the wonders, as in, I wonder what happened to the Oneders. Just great. Just fantastic.
Steve Zahn.
Steve Zahn.
And again, we see here in our comments, Steve Zahn was a real singer-songwriter and a guitarist. So
Yeah.
I
he's
found also
awesome.
on like Pinterest and Tumblr, there's tons and tons of old backstage photos from this movie, and they're all playing instruments. Like you could see Liv Tyler playing guitar, like the whole, like they were a band and they worked and traveled as a band. Like it was fantastic. I would
What a
love
fun experience.
I would love a reunion.
Yes, it's time for a reunion. All right, it's time for us to give a potato review. It should come as no surprise since, once again, as a reminder, we are only doing our favorite movies for the first few episodes of this podcast. But let's do we have a drum roll? Oh, I don't know if I have a drum roll in here. Oh, I do. All right, hang on. I gotta stop this sound effect. We're learning technology on the roll on the
We
Ready?
as in Katie.
We as in Katie, technology for the win. Okay, this might be too loud. Are you ready? 5 Christian taters for this movie. I know everyone is surprised. Everyone's just like amazed at how many Christian taters are in this movie. But way to go, Nat. Sound effects for everyone. You did a fantastic job recapping this entire movie. It's almost like I did the homework and watched it, but we all know I didn't. So next week.
Thank you for the fun facts.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So I was going to say that because we have a live studio audience this week, they get to pick what our next movie is. But before we even got there, Doc gave us an amazing suggestion. So Doc said, and he's going to win our next movie. And I will watch this one because I have time this week. Can't hardly wait. Ethan Embry. No Liv Tyler in that one.
We're going on. No, but there's a Jennifer Love Hewitt.
But there is Jennifer Love Hewitt, and I feel like it's close. It could have been Liv Tyler, but it was Jennifer Love Hewitt, and that's okay. That's okay, everyone. It's going to be amazing. All right, Doc, you're on. We're going to watch that one next.
I already know some fun facts about this movie. Get prepared, guys.
Oh, we can trade. You can do the fun facts, and I'll be forced to watch the movie and do the review.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Oh, my goodness. Well, as usual, you have wasted another hour hanging out with us here at the VHS Club. Thank you so much from all of us, from the Oneders, from our live studio audience. If you like this episode, be sure to join us next week. We stream live in front of our incredible studio audience on YouTube, 9 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. But if you're like, heck no, I don't want to see your faces, you can always listen to us on any of your favorite podcast platforms. I think I have now added all of them. I'm learning as I go. I think they're all there. So if you like Apple Podcasts, we're there. If you like Spotify, we're there. We're Spotify video as well, because we're awesome. And I even added Google Podcasts because that's Natalie's favorite. So
That's
if
where
one
I
of
am.
those, then we are 100% there. If one of the other ones, I think I added. So, hey, there you go. And we now have our fancy email address. So once again, if you want to suggest an upcoming movie, Doc won this one because he was here hanging out with us. But the following week, you could
Feeding
recommend
us
a
all the
movie.
facts.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love having to not Google while I'm doing this live.
Live fact checked, and the wonderful moderators who normally hang out with me on the eCam streams.
All of you, awesome. Thank you
All
for
of it.
all of your comments and your input.
Yes.
Super fun.
Absolutely awesome. And yeah, send us emails with recommendations or drop them in the comments. If you're watching on replay, our email address is thevhsclubpod@gmail.com, and we will answer you because we created it. So hey, we're in.
And can't hardly wait till next week.
Oh, Doc, I did add Amazon podcast just for you. I think I'm pretty sure I did. Double check to keep it real. We may need to make the upgrade and move over to Captivate pretty soon here because the other unnamed tool we're using is so much harder to use. So my learning experience is over, and we may have to make the change sometime soon. But thanks for hanging out, Nat. BFF night complete.
Yes. Have a good one. See you next week.
See you next week. Oh, no, I lost my mouse.